Hey everybody, it's me, it's Matty D. And we are 6 days away from Halloween Havoc here in this review of Monday Nitro, October 23rd, 1995. We're coming live from the Nassau Coliseum in Huntsville, Alabama. And this week's Nitro actually beat Raw. It reversed last week's ratings with this week's ratings and got a 2.6 to Raw's 2.2. So I think the show was very intriguing. We'll cover it as we get into it. For bad reasons, it was intriguing as well as good reasons. But I think just with the hype for Halloween Havoc, when we're going to see the Giant in his debut match against Hulk Hogan for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, as well as a monster truck match between the Giant and Hulk Hogan in their monster trucks, I think that there was a lot of audience interest going into this show, and we'll cover why. Obviously, it's not just the Halloween Havoc build-up. It is a really good show, and it features a lot of stars. We have Macho Man Randy Savage. He actually starts us off here. We have Hulk Hogan in his all-black ensemble, which is a very interesting... I mean, people forget about this all-black iteration of Hulk Hogan and just assume that he was yellow and red until he joined the NWO. So that will be quite interesting to cover here. We have a great tag team match between Eddie Guerrero and Mr. JL. It was supposed to be Alex Wright taking on Chris Benoit in only his second WCW match, and Dean Malenko. But look, we'll start from scratch here. We're live from the Nassau Coliseum, and Macho Man Randy Savage is coming out and starting us strong. He is going to be in a match against Kurosawa, who was on a couple of weeks ago, and I had never heard of him before, but boy did he impress me. Kurosawa was able to defeat Sergeant Craig Pittman for Craig Pittman's first ever loss in the WCW, and there was a lot of talk about how Kurosawa was the man who broke Road Warrior Hawk's arm in a tour of Japan, so that lended him some instant credibility, because we've known Hawk, television viewers have known of the Road Warriors for years by this point, and for this guy to just snap the arm off of the Hawk was quite interesting, to be honest with you. So we have Savage comes out for the match, and Bobby and Eric reference that Kurosawa broke the Road Warrior Hawk's arm, and also teases that Macho Man Randy Savage has a sore arm here that could be badly hurt by Kurosawa and his ground and pound, focus on a body part and tear that body part down mentality whenever he's wrestling. So we start off hot here. It's Kurosawa versus Randy Savage. Savage gets in the face of Colonel Robert Parker, and Robert Parker's talking smack and acting like the big man. So Macho Man has enough of him in his face and just starts attacking the Colonel, and that allows Kurosawa to get an early beatdown on Randy Savage. He hits several back leg round kicks, which Eric claims are very devastating moves, and boy do they look devastating here. And Mongo starts talking about how Randy Savage is going into this match with an injured arm, that other athletes would cry off for months. So really kind of making sure how tough we know Randy Savage is before the Macho Man gets his ass handed to him for a while by Kurosawa. He desperately throws Kurosawa out of the ring, but it doesn't buy him much time, and Kurosawa just continues that offense, keeps going for Randy's arm. Savage, he just can't get started. He falls to like a really stiff baseball slide. Randy's he's buying himself some time in the outside, and Kurosawa just runs and hits a baseball slide right in the chest of Randy, of the Macho Man, and it looks sore. So we cut to the break, and we see that really cool kind of retro Halloween Havoc promo. There's very scary imagery going on. There's references to the monster truck battle. It's a great promo that we've seen for weeks going on here, and we'll definitely see a lot of hype for this monster truck match in the upcoming rest of the show. So we're back in Huntsville here, and Kurosawa still has all the heat. Mongo says this is like a keel hauling, and Bobby the Brain Heenan he speaks for all the viewers and asks Mongo what it is, and Mongo just seems really offended, like he very kind of huffily responds when they drag a sailor up onto the boat. So I don't know if keel hauling is a thing or not, but it was just funny here seeing Mongo kind of hurt that Bobby made fun of his bad reference, which is very entertaining. I love the back and forth between this commentary team. I know that Mongo and, to be honest with you, Eric don't really have too long being the voices of Monday Nitro, but Mongo is so entertaining, and obviously Eric Bischoff is Eric Bischoff, and he knows what he has to sell in this show, so he's perfect to having that commentary role. But I feel like that announce, and obviously Bobby the Brain Heenan is Bobby the Brain Heenan, and he is absolutely fantastic. Can't say enough good words about the Brain. So Randy, he dodges a slide. Kurosawa tries to hit outside. It might have been like a oh, I can't remember. He tries to hit something on Randy on the outside, but Savage dodges it, and Kurosawa kicks the steel post, and it looks so sore, and that's kind of Randy's hope spot. That's what gives Savage the chance to get on top of Kurosawa here. So the Macho Man sends Kurosawa into the ring rope, which looks really sore. It completely takes out Kurosawa, and the Macho Man climbs on up to that top rope and hits the flying elbow, and the crowd explode for the flying elbow. It's such a beautiful finishing move. Randy wins just about, but he really Macho Man this is, he really sells for Kurosawa here, and Kurosawa looks like a beast who just got unlucky. He kicked that ring post, he got thrown in head first into that top rope, and it looked like a really sore spot, and that knocked him out just long enough for Randy to hit the elbow. And so Kurosawa, even though he lost here, he looks like a beast, and I'm still hoping to see that program with him and Hawk after he broke Hawk's arm. So that is a good way of keeping Randy so strong, because he's the Macho Man. He's a star on this show, while also keeping Kurosawa competitive. So 6 out of 10 for that match. Not bad at all. We cut to the announce team. Pepe and Mongo, they're wearing little cute blue outfits, so they're matching together. The team announced that both Hogan and the Giant are here. And Bobby the Brain tells this really strange story while everyone's hyping up the Giant and Hulk Hogan being here. He starts talking about when he was on a flight, and a pilot actually went up to him and asked him if Sting and Lex Luger could coexist together tonight. And Bobby explains how offended he was that this guy wasn't paying attention to flying and keeping them safe in the air, and basically, I'm assuming that this is a true story, but I don't know, tells the pilot that Bobby doesn't know what's going to happen between Sting and Lex Luger, and sends him on his merry way. So it's a very funny story, but the main question here is, I think they're emphasizing, everybody is talking about the fact that they cannot trust Lex Luger, and they want to know if Sting and Lex can coexist whenever they're teaming up tonight against Harlem Heat, who obviously are a very well-drilled, well-glued unit. Now we cut to one of the strangest segments that have ever happened, and it's very famous in WCW history. It's quite a famous thing. It's, long story short of it, too long, didn't listen. It's the DL version of the Yetay's debut. So all the lights go out while the announce team are talking, and a bundled up, deep voiced, strange individual starts talking. He kind of sounds like he's Vincent Price in the Thriller video, you know, the very scary voice talking about the horrible things involving the Thriller. And he kind of looks like Uncle Fester, but he's very deep voice, he's very Vincent Price, and he's mumbling on and on. He talks about something from the Himalayas that weighs 13 tons of ice. They cut to this big fake looking ice crypt that's here for the rest of the show, and it's brought out. All the while, this Uncle Fester is talking about the whiskers of a white tiger and about his son who wanders in darkness. We later find out that Uncle Fester's son is Kevin Sullivan. The Uncle Fester, Fester Price, starts talking about how his son's going to do something at Halloween Havoc, and the camera pans down from that crypt to Mean Gene Okerlund, who's here with the Taskmaster and the Giant. The Giant is standing there, rubbing his hands together, looking like a very excitable heel monster. And Mean Gene Okerlund demands answers. He asks Kevin Sullivan what that was all about, because obviously it was something to do with the Dungeon of Doom. And Sullivan refers to what's in the ice crypt as his insurance policy that his father found. A very weird family history involving the Dungeon of Doom, that it's lore that doesn't really get explained properly and never makes much sense, but they're trying to be mysterious, but this is bad. Kevin Sullivan says that this is insurance policy that his father found in the Himalayas. The Yetay, who is extremely famous. But the crowd, they're chanting for Hulk Hogan. It's clear they want to see him. There's no restraining order on them tonight, which is brilliant. The Giant takes the mic here. He calls Hulk Hogan the biggest tiger in the jungle, the rare white Bengal who is running out of lives, which at least explains why Vincent Price was talking about the Himalayas and the tigers and their whiskers, because he was actually talking about Hulk Hogan being that Bengal tiger losing his whiskers. Giant says he's going to take that last life of the tiger at Halloween Havoc, and he's also going to take the WCW belt because he's the one true immortal. And then Giant laughs like a madman and passes the mic back over to Kevin Sullivan. Sullivan explains a bit more. He says that whenever they shaved off the Hulkster's mustache, they plucked the whiskers off the rare white tiger. The WCW belt will be the Giant's. That's what the Taskmaster claims very evilly. And we leave the Giant and Taskmaster for now. It's bad. It's really, really bad, guys. It's one of those things, fortunately, now we look back on the Yeti, super famous. There's that very famous moment at Halloween Havoc where the Yeti humps the Hulkster. They say it looks like the Giant and the Hulkster and the Yeti are having a threesome and the Hulkster's in the middle. It's very, very famous and it's bad, but it's a good time capsule. That's what I keep saying about all these things on Nitro that are cringy and corny. They're a really good show of where WCW were at the time and where WCW is later to reach again whenever they do move towards that reality-based era of wrestling. So Eric, he advertises that match at Halloween Havoc. He tells us to call our local cable providers, and then we cut to the break. After the break, we see the awesome, it's been on TV before, it's a Slim Jim ad where Macho Man is bench pressing a mannequin of a woman, and that he says that he likes to snap into a Slim Jim and he just drops the woman on the floor. But fortunately, I think it was a mannequin, so there was no ladies hurt in this advertisement. I love the Slim Jim ads. They're absolutely fantastic. We then cut back to Mean Gene Okerlund, who is in the ring introducing the star of Thunder in Paradise, the World Heavyweight Champion, Hulk Hogan. An American Made blares out as the Hulkster comes out. The Hulkster's over tonight, and even though I know a lot of fans were tiring off him, he's still Hulk Hogan. American Made is such a great theme song, and there's still a lot of fans that have his back here. The Hulkster comes out in his black ensemble that people, like I say, just have forgotten about and assume only started whenever the NWO debuted. He's all smiley and happy, which is quite surprising. It's in direct contrast to his promo, though, because the Hulkster's talking about walking in the valley of the Dungeon of Doom, a play on the valley of the shadow of death. He is he's carrying his little Hulkamaniacs on his back. It's a very meandering promo, and like all of Hulkster's promos when he's been acting all dark and mysterious and attitude-laced, it's very meandering and it doesn't make much sense, but it's fantastic to see to this day. The Hulkster's concerned with three things. He's concerned about what to do with the black bandana, the black gloves, and the giant smelly carcass after Halloween Havoc. Hulkster, he thinks that he might hang on to them after Halloween Havoc in Detroit, Michigan, because, and to quote the Hulkster here, everybody knows what a man... Okay, well, we'll try that again, brother. Everybody knows what a man with a pair of black gloves on and a black rag on his head is capable of doing, dude. It's a very ominous Hulk here. He is, I mean, we don't associate men in all black with black gloves with anything good in society. It's very ominous. The Hulkster claims that they're going to make the Giant disintegrate. Mean Gene also asks Hulk Hogan if he feels abandoned by Lex, by Sting, by the Macho Man, because they haven't been helping him lately against the Dungeon of Doom. I hadn't noticed it, to be honest with you, but it has been a recurring thread that the Hulkster hasn't had much help whenever the Giant's been beating him up. But, I mean, I don't know. It's not very baby-facey to me for Hulkster to just constantly expect other people to fight his battles for him. So the Hulkster's mad here. He's mad at Sting. He's mad at Lex Luger. He's mad at the Macho Man. And he tells the little dogs to get on the porch and decide who has the biggest bark. It's him. It's the Hulkster. He's the biggest dog, so he has the biggest bark. The Hulkster says that he'll beat the three of them down one by one and then warns the Giant yet again for Halloween Havoc. I love the Hulkster's energy here. The all black babyface Hulk Hogan is not working. It's not great, but he delivers everything with such energy and gravitas that even though it's cringy, even though you feel a wee bit, you do find yourself getting invested in what the Hulkster says. It's one of those things when Hulk Hogan talks, you listen to him, you pay attention to him, you want to hear what he has to say. So I enjoyed this promo. We cut to your usual promo for WCW Saturday Night. Harlem Heat are defending I don't think they're defending the World Tag Team titles because I'm nearly certain they lost them, but I can't, maybe they just say that Harlem Heat are taking on the World Tag Team champions of the American males, and we're also going to have Lex Luger versus the Shark, so we will have an American males and Harlem Heat match at Halloween at WCW Saturday Night. We know that for sure, and it will be for the tag team titles. And speaking of tag teams, we cut to a tag team match when Dean Malenko and Chris Benoit come out. They're all ready for action as they're taking on the team of Eddie Guerrero and Alex Wright, or at least we think we're taking on the team of Eddie Guerrero and Alex Wright. Steve McMichael is talking about how Bobby the Brain Heenan needs to calm down because if he has a heart attack, the Mongol will not give Bobby mouth to mouth, which is just hilarious. Eddie Guerrero and Mr. JL then come out together, which is strange that because obviously, like I say, Mr. JL wasn't supposed to be in this match. But right behind them is an Alex Wright who is relying on crutches. Later on, they say that Alex Wright was meant to wrestle tonight instead of Mr. JL. But with Alex Wright being injured, and they don't say what the injury was from, but they speculate it was from trying to dance like Disco Inferno, who actually isn't on this show. Hooray! I love the Disco Inferno, but oh boy, these segments recently have not been great. So we're spared a break from Disco Inferno for 1 week, but I'm sure Glenn Gilberti will find his way back on to Nitro next week, and I'll be thinking, oh my goodness, I haven't seen Disco for a while. I've missed this fella. So Mr. JL's wrestling instead here, and it's a good match. Eddie and Benoit, they lock up to start, and oh boy, that's such a good callback to the match they had last week. Chris Benoit's debut in WCW, where Benoit just looked awesome, bringing the intensity and the fire to Eddie Guerrero, suplexes after suplexes, and eventually defeating him with the Dragon Suplex. So they start off here. Eddie throws Mr. JL onto Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko on the outside, which is fantastic. Malenko gets double teamed by Eddie and JL, but then they kind of cut away. They go to picture-in-picture to show a fight in the back, and I just assume automatically that this fight in the back is going to be the Giant and Hulk Hogan, who have already been out for individual segments, but instead it's actually in the Dungeon of Doom locker room between the Shark and Scott Norton, and I'm thinking, why is this happening? They explain just later on that Scott Norton is mad about the Shark costing him his debut match in WCW against Randy Savage, which was so long ago. I think it was the second week on Nitro that I've nearly completely forgotten about it. And it was kind of like, why are these guys fighting again? But that's the whole storyline behind it. The Dungeon of Doom breaks things up as the Zodiac just kind of dances like a loser in the background. I don't know what the Beefcake is doing here. even if it's supposed to be a brooding, serious stable, Zodiac, his look, you could get away with his look because the rest of the dungeon all look goofy, but he's constantly gyrating, he's constantly dancing, he's constantly looking like a fool. It makes no sense to me. It really does. I don't understand what the Zodiac's character is here. He brings nothing to the Dungeon of Doom, and it's just not enjoyable at all, and I don't know why he's here. But anyway, the Dungeon of Doom breaks things up, and we cut to a break in the main show as Dean Malenko has Mr. JL in an abdominal stretch. Okay, so Dean Malenko is still dominating Mr. JL after the commercial before Chris Benoit gets that tag and continues breaking down JL, just beating him up, hitting suplexes on him, throwing him into the top rope. Benoit's offense looks so rough and ready. It looks so painful and dangerous. It's really, really great to see. Every time Benoit comes into these matches, I just get so excited. Eric talks about the Yetay, and even though I've been reading Eric Bischoff's book recently, he is a salesman by trade before coming to WCW. Even Eric Bischoff can't sell the Yetay nonsense. Bobby the Brain, he sells Halloween Havoc better. He just doesn't mention the Yetay at all and focuses on Hulk Hogan and the Giant. Benoit, he's really controlling Mr. JL. He even hits a beautiful looking superplex on him on the top rope. JL, he's a great wrestler. He's great at selling. He's great at high flying. But it's such an awesome gimmick. There's no explanation of why he's in a mask. There's no explanation of why he's Mr. JL or about his history as Jerry Lynn. He's just there, and he's such a good worker, but with such an awful gimmick. I can't defend it. It's the same as Zodiac. I can't defend it at all. The JL eventually gets the hot tag on Eddie after some amazing selling. Eddie, he drop kicks Benoit while Benoit was on the apron with his back to the ring, which is a great way of keeping somebody out of action. Eddie looks like a house on fire here. This is a show of good hot tags. Sting gets one later on against Harlem Heat, and Eddie Guerrero, he's like a house on fire here. At one point, he does a head scissors while he's also doing a top rope arm drag on Dean Malenko. He does a head scissors to Chris Benoit. It looks fantastic here. Eddie's starting to come onto his own and improve his in-ring ability while also slowly but surely bringing his character work up a few notches. It's quite the thing to see here. There's a lot of fighting between Eddie Guerrero and Benoit on the outside, and at that point, Alex Wright just sticks one of his crutches in front of Dean Malenko, trips up Dean, and then Mr. JL rolls up Dean Malenko for a surprise win. I was not expecting Eddie Guerrero and Mr. JL to be the winners here, especially since Chris Benoit's just debuted. But the Alex Wright tripping up Dean Malenko, it keeps Alex Wright hot for this cruiserweight division that's coming. It gives Dean Malenko one out. And what a great match. 7.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. Eddie is celebrating on the entrance ramp, only for Flying Brian Pillman to randomly just assault Eddie Guerrero, to hit him in the back of the head, stamp him a few times, and then leave as quickly as he came. The commentators, they've got no context for why this has been happening, so I don't know if this is the start of the loose cannon Brian Pillman gimmick we've been getting here. He hasn't been just carbon cut babyface Brian Pillman in a while, and this may be the start of the whole loose cannon shtick. Harlem Heat now come out here with Sister Sherry, who looks absolutely sensational. She looks so beautiful. Sherry is such an icon. I'm such a big fan of hers. I think she came into the Hall of Fame in my first year watching wrestling, and I was just so enchanted by the video package showing her career. She seemed like a really cool heel valet, and she's a bit of an odd fit with Harlem Heat here. But she looks lovely, and the whole package with Harlem Heat is just fantastic. They pitched the hotline where they tease information about a show called In Your House, as Eric Bischoff refers to it. Mongo, he goes for the low-hanging fruit. He calls In Your House In Your Outhouse, which is just, it's kind of juvenile, but it works because it's Mongo. While Eric he's a bit more subtle. He quotes his friend, John Cougar, who I have no idea who that is, and says, when the walls come tumbling down. So Eric, he seems to be anticipating that WWF are down and out, that they're going to be out of business by WCW. And it's kind of ironic, as a lot of these references are, because we know Eric ends up, I'm sure he wouldn't appreciate me saying this if he ever heard it, but cap in hand almost, coming to Vince McMahon to work for him later on. But it's sad to see a lot of the hubris, as entertaining as it is. And I know they were fighting a war, and Eric was being a heel, but it's just sad to know where things ended up going for Eric Bischoff and WCW. Bobby the Brain, as always, speaks no bad about the WWF. It's like, I don't know if Bobby, I don't think he ever came back to work for Vince, but you have to respect the fact that even when they're fighting a war with WWE, or WWF, sorry, Bobby is never taking shots. He's never attacking the competition. He just stays nice and neutral the whole time and refuses to speak bad. And I think that's very admirable about the man. Speaking about the man, a man called Sting comes out for his match with Lex Luger, and Sting's energetic. Hulkster's already referred to this earlier on in his promo, that he didn't appreciate Sting dressed in yellow and red. But Sting comes out anyway with yellow and red, very Hulk Hogan looking, with Lex Luger. So they're ready for this match. Lex Luger, the whole storyline is, can Lex be trusted? Sting brought Lex Luger in. He was the one that in real life, as well as as well as on camera, took a punt on Lex Luger, who convinced Eric Bischoff to sign Lex, despite Lex having a lot of attitude issues and a lot of problems before joining WCW. So I really enjoy this storyline. Is Lex a heel or isn't he? And is he going to turn on Sting? And is Sting a fool for trusting Lex Luger? Obviously, we know Luger has got a match against, I think it's Meng at Halloween Havoc. Sting has got a match. He's teaming up with Ric Flair, who wasn't on this show, which was surprising, to take on Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman at Halloween Havoc. So they all have their little things going on here and their little story threads. And it's a really good angle. The match starts off with Booker T trying to get the jump on Sting. Sting kind of refuses to back down. And hits a hip toss on Booker T over the top rope. And we still have that antiquated, even for 1995, over the top rope equals a disqualification rule. So Bobby's calling and crying out for disqualification, but Eric just claims the usual that WCW do around this rule, and claims that it was completely accidental, and that's obviously the stance the referee took up as well. After the break, Harlem Heat get the heat on Lex Luger, as Bobby claims that the two, Sting and Lex, aren't on the same page, even though we haven't really seen anything to show that they're not on the same page. But I suppose the Brain is just being the heel at this point. Booker T hits a scissors kick on Lex, and Harlem Heat start to get some serious offense and heat on Lex Luger here, while since Sister Sherry kisses two Polaroids. And the camera's not great, especially on my phone, which is what I watch a lot of wrestling on. And you can just about make out that the Polaroids are of her and Colonel Robert Parker. So if Sherry is just kissing these Polaroids of her and Robert Parker in the middle of the match, and it's so random, this is going to be a very long-running storyline. I'm fully aware that Sister Sherry and Colonel Robert Parker have a bit of a thing for a while. So she's kissing these Polaroids. It's very random. It's very thrown in there. It's very odd of Sherry to just start kissing Polaroids of her and her boyfriend. But it's in there for some reason. Stevie Ray has a chin lock on Lex Luger, and they do the old 1, 2... And then the third one, which would see Lex and Sting lose the match by knockout. And Lex gets his hand up and avoids it and makes his comeback. Where are we here? Sorry. Booker misses a Harlem Hangover and Lex makes that tag on Sting. And as I said earlier, the Stinger makes such a great hot tag. He hits the splashes on both of Harlem Heat, as Eric and Mongo talk about how this is why it's bad sometimes to isolate a wrestler out of a match, because invariably whenever they come in, they will be like a house on fire. Sting is just great here. He goes for a scorpion leg lock, but Booker T throws Sting off of a side kick. Heat hit a double suplex on Lex Luger, which looks fantastic. The Harlem Heat, they do lose to these two main eventers here, but boy do they look good in losing. They hit that double suplex on Luger, but completely miss Sting on the top turnbuckle, who hits a crossbody on Booker T and pins Booker 1, 2, 3. Very quickly, there's no time for Sting and Lex to celebrate because the Dungeon of Doom come out. It's not the Dungeon of Doom, it's only the Giant and Kevin Sullivan. The Giant, he chokeslams Lex Luger and then he chokeslams Sting. Randy Savage comes out to make the save and he stares down the Giant, but there's not much time for this stare down because the Hulkster's out here and Randy Savage just thinks to himself, okay, I'm going to leave this to the Hulkster. So Hulk Hogan, he has a stare down with the Giant. They look at each other intensely and it seems to go on forever, even though it's just a couple of seconds. And then Hulk Hogan starts laying the punches on the Giant. It's just the two of them here. This is great. They talk about how the whole Dungeon of Doom come out to watch, but the Giant completely no-sells Hulk Hogan's punches and hits Hulk right in the back of the neck, which is supposedly quite a stiff shot because obviously the Hulkster still is on his neck brace. But the Hulkster no-sells that punch. He punches Giant. He starts punching the Giant again and actually bangs his head on the top turnbuckle. And this is the first time the Giant looks rattled here. It's fantastic to see. The entire Dungeon of Doom are afraid by this point, so they storm the ring. But the Macho Man's still here. Oh, yeah! And Randy Savage runs into the ring and helps the Hulkster completely clear the Dungeon of Doom out of the ring. The Hulk throws Giant's head yet again into the top turnbuckle, but Doug Dillinger, unfortunately, comes down to the ring, pulls them apart. Doug Dillinger is the head of security for WCW, I should add, and he's trying to break things up. And then something insane happens. The ring starts to shake quite intensely, and the block of ice that's been there since the very start of the show, that's been referenced again and again by the commentary team, starts to see lights glow from it. The whole thing is kind of, it's very cheesy, it's quite tense. The commentators are selling it like it's the worst thing in the world they've ever seen. And eventually, as Bobby the Brain Heenan runs off, the glass, the ice just shatters, and outstanding there is a Savage gyrating, bandage wrapped from head to toe, Yetay! And literally no sooner than the Yeti is there doing his dancing, the show ends and we're done. It was the last image before Halloween Havoc. This bandaged lunatic gyrating and shaking like a mad thing in the ring. And that was our last vision before Halloween Havoc. Look, the Yeti, it's a corny thing. It's cringy. It kind of summarizes where WCW was back in 1995. But what an experience it was to watch it as it happened. To see the Yeti, his promo for the build-up. To see the ring shaking, the commentators selling the entire thing non-stop. It was such a treat to see, and I loved this segment with all of my heart. What more can I say? We know what happens at Halloween Havoc. I'll cover it a bit more in my next review for the Nitro after Halloween Havoc. But the Yeti, like I say, has that very famous spot where he kind of humps the Hulkster, and after that, the Yeti is done. As far as I know, Ron Reese, the man who plays the Yeti, just goes back to wrestling as Ron Reese, and the entire thing is wrapped up. But yes, this has been a great Nitro. Plenty to talk about. So much talking in this one compared to usual. They had to build, they had to sell, they had to get us excited for Halloween Havoc. And I think despite the Yeti's involvement, it went well, or as well as could have went. So a good show. We've seen a good tag team match, which I would have rated that tag team match a 7 out of 10. We seen another great tag team match between Mr. JL, Eddie Guerrero, and Dean Malenko and Chris Benoit. And Nitro was on a roll here. It's cheesy and it's corny and it's silly, but it's 1995 and I wouldn't have my wrestling any other way. So thank you very much for checking me out again, guys. Happy New Year to you all again, in case I didn't say that in my last video. I hope 2022 is fantastic for you all, and thank you so much for checking me out. This has been me, Matty D. Bye, everybody.